Hey there neighbors, Kevin here with Etrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Hellwig front anti-sway bar here on our 2020 Thor Four Winds Class C motorhome. Class C motorhomes are a great way for you and your family to go out on an adventure and spend some quality time together, but unfortunately the ride from point A to point B isn't always the smoothest. A lot of the time the suspension really isn't as much of a focus when it comes to motorhome manufacturers. They're really looking at what your enjoyment's going to be inside of the motorhome. Now with it being Class C, it's not really an aerodynamic shape. We've got this big boxy exterior here so that we can house all of our stuff and actually have a place to sleep, but that doesn't make it aerodynamic, so we're getting a lot of wind drag just from the beginning, not even from any crosswinds, so it's already putting a little bit more fatigue on the driver of our motorhome. Now what goes to happen is, as we're going down and we're facing all of those winds, or maybe we're starting to make some turns, our body's going to want to start to lean side to side because we've got a lot of weight in here. It is pretty top heavy as well, and depending on how the layout is, you might have all of your appliances on one side, so you got a ton of weight over on one side and maybe just the dinette over on the other, or a couch which doesn't weigh as much. So one side's already going to be leaning, and we're going to have that kind of want to go to that way every single time when we're making a turn, or if we are starting to lean one way because we're going in that turn, it's going to really be a drastic kind of shift back. So to help solve that issue, we're going to upgrade our front anti-sway bar, and we could potentially also add in or upgrade our rear anti-sway bar if we didn't already have one, so that way we can stiffen up our frame. An anti-sway bar is going to essentially be a spring, so it wants to stay at that factory setting there, and then anytime we start to kind of pull on it, it's going to want to pull itself right back. So it's going to keep us nice and level. It's going to help with our driver fatigue because now we're not having to fight the wheel as much because we're not starting to lean too much. And personally, we're not going to be sliding around in our seat. So I know in my truck, before I put a sway bar on it, I was kind of leaning one way or the other, and I was starting to rub a little spot on the back of my seat where my belt loop was. So we're solving a couple of different issues with something that's super easy to install. We are going to be on a lift when we install this, just so that the camera has extra space so you guys at home can see exactly what we're doing. But this is something that you could easily just lay down in front of your motorhome and do on the ground in just a couple of minutes. So with that being said, not everybody wants to actually get under their motorhome and work on it, or they just don't have the tools to do so. And if that is the case for you, then please feel free to use our dealer locator. You can enter in your zip code and find a shop near you to get it professionally installed. If you are wanting to do this yourself, then stick around. We'll head into the shop in just a second and show you how to do it. One other thing to note is just the finish on our sway bar here. So this is a 4140 chromoly steel, which is going to be super high quality, and it's going to have that hammered powder coat finish on it, which honestly gives it a super nice look. That's going to be better at holding up over time and kind of resisting scratches. A lot of times when you see a gloss black or even like a matte black, you know, it ends up looking a little rusty over time, or you'll get little dings or scratches on it, and that just shows because it's a super glossy finish. Whereas with this, the gray and black hammered finish on this really kind of helps hide that. So with all that being said, why don't we show you how to get it actually installed. So to start with our install, we're going to be disconnecting our sway bar from the end links to start with. Now with our Hellwig ones, we're going to be reusing the same end links, so it's going to make our installation just a little bit easier here, because all we have to do is pop off the nut on the top of the end link, so that way we can actually get this off. Now on the back side of it, you can see there's this bolt where there's a flat side on either edge. You can use a 3/4 inch or a 19 millimeter wrench to kind of hold on to that while we get the nut off. We don't want that spinning on us, because then obviously we can't get it out. So on the nut side, that's going to be an 18 millimeter, and I'm going to do this to both sides. We'll get the nuts off, and then we're going to get over here to where the bracket is. Now this is going to be two different sizes here. The front bolt's bigger than the rear one, so we'll get those off next, and then we can drop our sway bar. It's really not much on this. Once you break that free, and make sure that you save that hardware. We're going to be reusing it. Probably have to wiggle it around a little bit to get the other side off. There we go. All right, now it's time to loosen up the bracket here. For the front bolt, we're going to be using an 18 millimeter socket. And Turn this up a notch. Now on the back one, we're going to be using a 15 millimeter. At this point, we can kind of drop it down a little bit. I'm going to use this track bar here to actually help hold it up, because I'm going to get the other side going here too. All right. Now we can pull our sway bar out and set it down. All right, so I just want to lay this out in front of you guys so you can actually see what difference this is going to be making here. So with our factory sway bar, that's going to be 7/8 of an inch in diameter there, and then our new one is going to be 1 3/8 in diameter. So we're upgrading by about a ½ inch here. Now, Roadmaster says that every 1/8 of an inch in thickness bigger, it's about a 20% increase in performance. So if we're doing the math here, there'll be about an 80% difference in performance with this thicker bar versus our standard factory one. So next we're going to take our lubricant, which is this little white paste inside the tube, and we're going to be spreading that on the inside of our bushings. Now our bushing brackets are going to sit just like this. So we'd have the sway bar inside of our bushing, we'd pop on the outer bracket, and then from behind we're popping in this inner bracket. Now these brackets have different sized holes to match up with the hardware that we had before. So we're going to be using that larger bolt again, and you'll see one side has kind of a smaller slotted hole, the other side has a much larger hole, and that's the side that's going to be facing towards the front. We'll pop in our factory bolt, and then in the back one we're going to have the included bolt and flat washer, and we're going to add on a little bit of blue Loctite to our threads before we pop that through. Put a little bit more in there. Looks good. Look at the other one. All right, now we're going to split our bushing and pop it onto our sway bar. All right, I got my brackets up. I'm using the track bar on the other side to help hold up the other end. Now if you're on the ground, probably a lot easier. You can just lay down and do this. But we're on the lift today, so that way you guys can get a better view. I'm going to get the other side started as well. All right, now that that's being held up, I'm going to take my blue Loctite, our supplied bolt and flat washer. We're going to run some blue Loctite down that. And thread that into the rear hole. All right, I got this pushed over. Essentially what the problem was is we're kind of leaning more over to one side than the other. So once you center your bar out a little bit better, it'll help with that bracket. And now I'm going to snug it down. So for the rear bolt, we're using a 17 millimeter socket. And once again on the front, we're using an 18. right, so before you fully snug these down, like I went snug and then I backed them back off because I wanted to be able to move my bar side to side. What we're looking for is we want our end links to be going straight up. We want them nice and perpendicular. So I needed to come over just a bit to this side to get these to line up right. Once we have that, then I can re-tighten the bolts down. I think right about there is as close as we're going to be getting to perfect. So we can snug this down. All right, now we're going to go ahead, we'll torque our bolts here. I did hand thread on the bolts on our end links. I'll tighten those down a bit more in just a minute, but I am going to torque these. Now I will say these are both different torque specs because they are different bolt sizes, so make sure that you are paying attention and doing the correct setting for it. And now we're going to torque the end links. Just make sure that you are throwing a wrench that either 3/4 or 19 millimeters onto the inside where the flat edges are, so that way you can keep that bolt from spinning. There we go. And we'll do the same over on our other side. Now that our new sway bar is installed, we're out front here. We're going to go test drive around our lot and just make sure that everything is properly torqued down. We're not hearing any kind of clunking or anything where it might be shifting back and forth. I have seen that in the past with some where I've torqued it down to the spec that they list, but it still needed to go a little bit more than that just for it to fully seal up and not have that clunking noise when you're driving around making those sharper turns. So with that being said, we're going to get in and we'll go test drive this out. So just a little bit of driving around here. It is feeling really good. It's really smooth when we're making turns. I've tried making really, really sharp turns like I'm going to do right here, right now. No problems, no squeaking, no bumping, nothing. It's coming right through, no problem. We're not really leaning as much side to side, which is exactly what we're looking for with an anti-sway bar, because it's trying to pull the frame rail back to its start position. And with a Class C, you really have a lot of top-heavy weight, so it really wants to sway side to side a lot. But in this case, this one's actually pretty good today, so I think the sway bar did help quite a bit. So now we're inside the shop, we're up on the lifts again, and you can see our anti-sway bar here up front. It looks a whole lot better than the factory one. It's about a 1/2 inch thicker as well. So we're going to be getting a lot more support here for our motorhome. I did want to take a closer look at the bushings as well. These are going to be made of polyurethane and are going to be made to last. So we're going to have a lot more resilience here essentially, so that way we're not getting any wear and tear play, because as the bushing eventually does wear out, you'll get play in there, the whole bar can kind of move around, and then it's not being held and pressed up against that frame essentially. So then now we're kind of getting wiggle room, which will throw off how it's going to function and would eventually require replacement because it's going to keep losing that efficiency as the bearings wear, or bushings wear. So just make sure you get down every once in a while. Recheck your torque. It's super important to just do that every once in a while. If you're not an avid camper with your motorhome, maybe you do it a couple times a year, just get down once before your trip. Check the torque on the rear and front bolts for the brackets, and then also on your end link as well. Ford specs are what we're going to be going off of for the end link, and then the same for the front and rear bolts as well. So if you want to look it up, just look up what the Ford factory specs are, and you should be able to find the torque for it. Other than that, there's no other maintenance because it's just the two brackets and bushings on the side and then the connection to our end links. So aside from checking the torque, maybe just spraying it down if you're getting some buildup on here and just double checking that the bushings are still nice and snug. That's really going to be it. That's going to do it for our look at and installation of the Hellwig front anti-sway bar here on our 2020 Thor Four Winds Class C motorhome. My name's Kevin. If you still have some questions about what's going to be the right anti-sway bar setup, or you just need some help with your suspension with your Class C motorhome, please feel free to reach out to us via our Ask the Experts link, a comment on this video, or a phone call to our customer service department. We'd be happy to help you out on your journey.